Hi, welcome back to the Meeting of Minds podcast. It's great to have you here with us today, listening and watching this great conversation that I'm going to be having today with my friend, Elisha May. So Elisha is many things, as well as being my friend. She's a high sensory coach. She's an artist who specializes in energy paintings. She does lots of other things that I couldn't even begin to remember, and let you know exactly what she does. So we'll let her do that during the course of this conversation. But I'm really looking forward to this chat with Elisha and to you listening to what she's got to say. So Elisha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Philippa. Thank you for having me. And I also just want to say thank you for this being my official first guest podcast. So thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome, and it's an honor to have you here as your very first, and I'm sure it won't be the last, conversation on a podcast. So tell us who are listening a little bit, if you don't mind, and share as much or as little as you want about how you got to the place that you are in your life now. Now, I know that's a massive question. So where would you like to start?
Wow, that is like a $1 million question or whatever they say. Well, I think
I can help you out with a question if you with a narrower question, if that helps start.
Yeah, maybe go with that, because I did think of something, but let's just see what the other question might be.
So I'd really like to know more about your paintings and being an artist and you specializing in energy paintings.
Yeah, okay, so that's cool. So for me, I suppose, coming back to actually your original question, is I've always felt different. I've always felt as if there was sort of two parts of me. You know, there was the sort of very human experience of just being a human, being a woman, just going along with convention. But then there was another part of me that just wanted to be this free spirit. There was just this always inner knowing of just being just different. Art has always been a massive passion of mine. I've spent so many hours doing it. I've had a real conflict battle with my art and creativity. Again, sort of over the years of wanting to just do it my way, but also being influenced with schools, colleges, universities, and the art world, of having to fit into the artist box. And don't get me wrong, that works for some artists, you know, great. I love that it works for them. However, it just doesn't seem to work for me, because no matter how I try over my life to just keep putting myself in these boxes of convention that society says I should fit into, I just end up becoming miserable, unhappy, and just stagnant. So it's just sort of, returning myself to just this more flowing, going with the flow sort of vibe, really, which my paintings allow.
Yeah,
hopefully represent.
Yeah, so I was going to say, do you feel that the paintings that you do allow you to explore and express your difference that you sometimes feel you can't do in, human life, sort of thing?
Yeah, so well, it was funny that I remember my first ever energy painting was 2009. It was my end of year show at university, and again, you had to fit an objective, and it was like, oh, this is such BS. And I sort of tried to do it to tick the boxes to get the grades I wanted, but at the same time, just it's like I thought the whole idea of self-expression and being an artist was just doing you. But it's like, oh, so they constantly, the art world for me contradicts itself, especially in the education sector, of like, be you, express, be original, but hey, no, you got to tick the boxes to get the grades. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, this just doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, the first energy painting I did, was just really, really randomly. One day, I just needed to loosen up. I'd felt very rigid painting some floral paintings, which I'm proud of most of them, pleased. And I just was like, oh, do you know, I just need to just loosen up. I feel very tight. So just one day, I just intuitively just started just putting paint brush to the canvas, and blimmin' loved it. And I just was in this flow, and I just was like, wow, like this is what art's about. And afterwards just was like, okay, this is random, but hey, I really enjoyed the process. Don't really know what the end goal was trying to be, but whatever. Anyway, stuck it up amongst my end of year pieces and sold it twice.
How can you sell a painting twice?
Well, it was on display at the end of the year show. My boyfriend at the time, his dad saw it and just fell in love with it. It spoke to him. And I don't know if anybody realizes that a lot of art has a metaphysical effect on people. So, it literally does talk to you on many levels. And he just said, is that for sale? I was like, I guess it is. He's like, how much? I was like, I don't know. And I'm like 21 or something. And I just like plucked out 100 quid. And he's like, done. I was like, okay, great. And then within the following weeks of the exhibition, somebody that worked at the university found me and said, oh, I really want your painting. Please tell me it's for sale. Please, please, please. And I said, I'm really sorry, but I actually sold it. However, I'm happy to do you an original that will look similar, but it will look slightly different because obviously it's going to be an original. And I said, it's 100 quid, okay? And she said, yeah, brilliant, love it. I was like, fantastic. So yeah.
Okay, I see.
They were the two people.
Yeah, no, I see now. And it's really interesting listening to you talk about how, your idea of art, you would hope is all about self-expression, but there is, especially the way it's taught in education establishments, you have to tick certain boxes. And that seems to me actually to resemble a lot of how we might feel about life
Yes.
in general, that we, I think there are a lot of people, I was definitely one of them, and I'm sure, I think you probably were, and there are lots of other people out there who kind of have this yearning for something different, but don't really know what it is. And for me, I found that to be that I'd ticked all the boxes, or I'd ticked as many boxes as I could, and still found myself not feeling very fulfilled. And actually, the way I've now feel much more fulfilled in my life is by not worrying about ticking the boxes and getting to know myself better and what makes me tick, and what I call, makes my heart and soul sing. Does that sort of resonate with you?
Absolutely. It's been a constant conflict since primary school, really, just knowing that the way, it sounds daft at that age, but each year I was just so aware of sort of the structure of the education system. I just was like, because for me, I'm what is known as a high sensory person, or a highly sensitive person with sensory processing sensitivity, which actually now they're saying is 30% of the population, not 20%. So I just felt ultra sensitive, and I was just like, wow, this system just isn't set up for me. It's noisy, it's chaotic, it changes. And then, you get older, you go out into the world more, and you're there just thinking, this isn't how it's supposed to be. There is just this abundance of constant things just telling you, selling you a story of how life should be, how it should look. And for me, I've tried so hard ticking the boxes of life, but my God, does it just slap me in the face each time. And when I've sort of experimented with sort of going with convention and just doing it my way, it's amazing how the resistance just disappears. Flow starts to come in, happiness starts to come in, joy, fulfillment. It's just a completely different way of living. And so for me, in the last year, I've had a complete transformation. A year ago, I had COVID mixed in with a nervous breakdown, hopefully the last, one of many. I've suffered with burnout and lots of mini nervous breakdowns a lot of my adult life, where I've been forcing myself to be like everybody else, when actually I need to do life my way. And learning about sensory processing sensitivity literally transformed my life a year ago, thanks to Julie Bieland and her courses, and then doing the high sensory coaching program with Willow McIntosh, which I know you did as well, have literally transformed me and given me permission to just be me. And it's interesting how society even now it sort of teaches you to be you, but at the same time it really doesn't. It's telling you to just do it a certain way, which for me has been just a very, very painful process. But now over the last couple of months, it's been so wonderful, refreshing to just step into me, to advocate for my needs, and learning about the trait has been so helpful in being able to verbalize it to everybody else in a really simple context. Because throughout my life, I've felt different, I felt weird, I felt crazy, I felt sensitive. I've had all these labels put onto me. People have said, "Oh, you're like a breath of fresh air." I'm like, "Yeah, terrific," but the rest of the world doesn't seem to like it. But now I'm just taking full ownership of my originality, and it's just a wonderful place. And I hope in time everybody can get to that point in their life, because it's very different, because we're all unique. This notion of, be normal like everybody else. Well, what is normal? And if you think of the statistics, so if SPS is 30% of the population, then you've got autism, that's 2% apparently. You've got ADHD, I don't know if that's 2 or 12%. Then you've got dyslexia. And then, just like there's a long list. Like, we're all on a spectrum, we're all unique, we're all different, whatever you want to label it as. We're all us. I think this idea of normal really is starting to go out the window in a big way, and about flipping time, to be honest.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I've been saying for a while, what is this normal, and what makes like you say, discovering sensory processing sensitivity really was life-changing for me. And that's what Elaine Aron called, labeled as the highly sensitive person. And Willow likes to talk about SPS sort of like being our high sensory intelligence. And but it is all just something that is an innate trait in the people who have it. There are spectrums, like you say, like there are for everything, but actually, who are these so-called normal people that makes the people who don't fit into that sort of, what I think appears to be quite a narrow way of being? Who are those people? Because the more I think about it, the more I know people who aren't in that quite narrow category is the wrong word, but I can't think of a better word. Actually, there are much more of us outside that. And embracing who we are and not worrying about ticking the boxes quite so much, and not worrying about how we are different, but just working out who we are. And like you said, advocating for your needs. But actually, the step before that is working out what your needs are.
Yes.
Then you can advocate for your needs. And then we can all be sort of living in a way that allows us to be the best version of ourselves, which and surely I can't see how that is not better.
Exactly. And it's, and the word sort of self-empowerment comes in, is that for so many years we've had that sort of model of being a normal person, and like we're finding out, people that have tried that, they're actually miserable. You know, it looks good on the outside, the facade looks great, but actually they're unfulfilled. They don't really have a purpose, and they're just wondering what the is life. You know, what, okay, it's like, great, I've ticked all the boxes, now what? I'm still unfulfilled, you know. And this sort of brings me on to a really good point of, I'm just working on a program with somebody, an initiative, hoping to get it into schools, particularly secondary schools, and I'd really like to get it to uni students as well, is this advocating for our needs, this sort of neurodiversity that's coming up, where it's like, do you know what, there is no normal. We're all on some kind of spectrum somewhere. We're on the scale. For me, I'm really high on the SPS scale, so it makes me an empath. So I can read energy and feel it deeply. And for me, life has been very intense, good and bad, you know, joy, sadness, pain, whatever. And I just think if children can be taught, particularly in secondary school, where, you know, you've got the raging hormones, you've got teachers demanding things of you, you know, the education system's demanding things of you. So you're in that conflict of, as a teenager, you're kind of like, I just want to be me, but who is me? With, oh, I've just got to do what I need to do to survive, to get my GCSEs, to then get to the A levels, to just like kind of start ticking life, tick box life, because that's what we're told to do. And I'd really love to get more awareness around SPS in schools, because, you know, amazingly, you know, we've got ADHD help, we've got autism help, we've got dyslexic help, which I think is fantastic. And, you know, the education system has been one funnel for one kind of child. Well, hello, there isn't a normal, as we're, you know, discovering. So the education system has to start bending and providing for individuality. And I really want to advocate for individual needs, whether you're dyslexic, whether you're SPS, whether you're ADHD, it doesn't matter. Whether you're in a wheelchair, it doesn't matter. You've got your individual needs, you know, you have a right to own them, you have a right to advocate for them. But until you know what they are, you can't advocate. And that was my problem for years. I knew I was different. I knew I could read energy in people's moods. But what do you do with that? If you start talking to a lot of people and you start sort of saying, oh, sorry, I need some alone time, you know, to just, I don't really know why I need it, but I just know I do. People, you know, I remember in my youth, people were sort of like, oh, well, what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you come out with me tonight? It's like, you know, I'm just dog tired because I've had a really busy week. I'm overstimulated. I can put words to it now, but I couldn't 20 years ago. And I just would get ridiculed and made to feel really sort of, I was, you know, belittled for, you know, wanting to meet my needs. So if we can get sort of youngsters and any age, but, you know, I'd love for if I'd known what I know now 20 years ago, I'd have made a lot of different decisions. I'd have just had ownership of who I am. I'd have had self-empowerment at a much early age. I'd have gone through my creative life in a confident way, rather than this bouncing in and out of it, guilt over earning money from selling my art. So if children can learn about their needs with SPS, they can then go, oh, okay, so it's okay to feel like this. These are my needs. Like, it will transform them. And I know this sounds really grand, but, you know, I'm aware that with people advocating for their needs more, no matter who they are, where they come from, what age they are, we will be preventing things like anxiety, depression, substance abuse, suicide, that, you know, I've experienced all those things. You know, my late brother killed himself because he was a HSP empath and the world was too much for him. So if he'd known about his needs, he'd have advocated for them and would probably still be here today. And I know, you know, suicide is a hot topic for both of us, and I want to make it normal and just, it's part of life, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah. And I'm, you know, I'm very sorry for what, you know, what happened to your brother and to your family, you know, who, you know, were left behind, and also all the struggles that you've been through and your nervous breakdowns and things. I mean, that is, you know, that's a lot to go through in, you know, in 30 odd years already. And, but also acknowledge how far you have come with learning about yourself and learning how to understand your needs and advocate them. And, you know, we're all still learning, aren't we? But, and I love your passion of wanting to use that to help other people. And I totally agree with what you say about kids and teenagers. You know, I've got two myself, and, you know, as well as all those other pressures that you talked about, there's also the pressure coming from their parents, you know, well-meaning parents. I find it a real struggle to come to where the fine line is between encouraging, motivating them, telling that, you know, explaining to them that really the way the system's set up, you need to get a certain amount in your exam results in order to then move on anywhere, but also within that allowing them to work out for themselves who they are. And, you know, it's a real, and you know, and I'm quite self-aware along those lines, and I really want them to work out who they are. Not that they want to talk about that sort of thing in so many words, because, like, oh, shut up, mum, what are you talking about? But also not, you know, teenagers don't necessarily get that at home, and that's not to throw parents under the bus who don't really get what I'm talking about. That's not what it is at all. You know, it's a lot. It is a lot, and I just don't think the education system is set up well at all. But then what do I, you know, then I kind of have this, oh, I shouldn't say that because I'm not in the education system, and who do I think I am to be commenting on it? But all my experience of having two children, two now teenagers, gone through the education system, I can only see how awful it is. And it feels now like an endurance test. It does not feel like something that's nurturing them, that is encouraging them, that is motivating them, giving them skills to move forward with. It just feels like an endurance test. And you know, I so hope there is change on the horizon, but also that costs money. And given where we are at the moment and the government and everything, I don't know where that change is going to come from. And hopefully that change is going to be led by people like you. That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm definitely on a bit of a mission, and I've got support, so hopefully watch this space, because this is the thing, you know, the world is so chaotic, as we know, as HSPs, and, you know, for kids as well, like, thank God I didn't have social media 20 years ago to deal with. I mean, I can't even go there. And like you say, the pressure that parents are on now, as individual people, you know, they've got jobs, they might be going through grief, they might be going through childhood traumas that's coming out in their adulthood, and they're running a home, they've got a husband, a wife, they've got children, and they're wanting to be there for their children as well. And this conflict that parents must have, where, like you say, you want your child to do well in the education system, because if they want to go on to be a doctor, or they want to be an artist or a musician or a bricklayer, electrician, nurse, whatever they want to be, you know, we do need these sort of qualifications to you know, earn money and things. But at the same time, the conflict as well of, like, you just want your child to have this strength and this foundation to just go out into the world, fully know who they are, even if they don't quite know what they want. I didn't know what I wanted until my late 30s. You know, I had an idea, I've tried a lot of things, but until I became aware of who I was, I didn't know what I wanted. And I think that's, you know, variety of life is the spice of life, or whatever the word is that I want. And it's just a minefield, I think, for parents and children. Like, they're both pressurized in their own way, and it's just, for me, it's so unfair. It makes me really sad. You know, whether down the line, you know, there's individual schools where it's like, you've got schools for practical kids that are just so hands-on, like, that would be amazing. And there's qualifications for hands-on kids. And then there's academia schools, and it's for kids that want to be lawyers and doctors. Great, that's for those kids. I mean, I know this is a crazy idea, or if that can be provided for somehow. But yeah, it's just not set up for individuality at all.
No, and I think some people in education will say that that already exists. That kids can go and do practical things, or they can stay in academia. I mean, I was a lawyer, and I chose to do law, but that doesn't mean that's actually makes my heart and soul sing. So I think I think they have to choose too early, and it all becomes quite narrow. But also I do understand the education system has to sort of be somewhere and set some boundaries somewhere. But how can we encourage our kids to find out who they really are outside the confines of maybe that education structure that they have to work within? And I think that's what I'm not trying to fight the system. I'm kind of saying to them, well, that's what they, you've got to do it. Sorry, but that's the way it is. It doesn't matter what you want to do afterwards. If you haven't got 5 GCSEs, it's really tough. So, and saying that to my severely dyslexic son, who is really struggling, who's got it all going on in his capability, but actually the school structure is a real challenge for him. And and I'm just saying, sorry, love, but that's just the way it is. But also encouraging him outside the confines of that to see how great he is.
Something that, sorry.
No, carry on.
Something that my dad said to me, which was really, really helpful in my GCSEs. And it was because I knew that the setup wasn't enabling me as a HSP child to thrive. I knew I could have hit more A's if school life was slightly different, but also my home life wasn't terrific, because sadly my dad, HSP empath as well, had a very traumatic childhood, and it was coming out later on in life with chronic fatigue, anxiety and depression. So he was around, but he wasn't around, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
but he said to me, look, very similar to along your lines of, look, the system is the system. Do the best you can, but just remember, life starts when you leave school. And that was really helpful at sort of 15, 16. It kind of gave me that permission. Okay, so I'll do the best with my knowledge that I have right now, but actually okay, that kind of that takes the pressure off a bit, and that really helped. It's like, okay, so my life's actually going to begin when I leave school. Somebody said to me recently that now it's mandatory for kids up until 18 to do either diplomas, A-levels, apprenticeships, and that sort of broke my heart, really, because I thought, yes, those things should be on offer, period, those choices, definitely. However, for me, I tried A-levels because, again, I got caught up in, well, I better get A-levels because then that gives me advantage over like these choices. But actually I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do about 50 million things at the same time. But I was conflicted with going to art school because I knew I loved being creative. I didn't know how I was going to make a job out of that. I didn't have a clue, but I just was like, well, that's what I love. So I guess I do what I love, at least try. But it was like, oh no, I should do A-levels because that's what society tells me to do. So there was a conflict. Anyway, tried A-levels for a couple of months. And then it was like, this is just too much. Looking back, I realized that I was sensory overloaded constantly. So going into college, and then having a teenage social life and work, I was completely bombarding myself. Anyway, I realized that it just wasn't working for me because what I was expected to do within these A-levels. So I did a couple of creative ones, and I was like, hang on a minute. I thought the idea of being creative was freedom of expression. I'm not really allowed to express myself here because I've still got to tick box something. So anyway, I came out of it and I spent 6 months, give or take, working 2 part-time jobs. So I was 17, 18 at this point, knowing I wanted to go to art school. Looking forward to it, but I had a 6-month period and I thought, right, how can I utilize this? Let's get some life experience, let's get some stuff on my CV, because the CV has to look good, apparently, like pressure. So I did 2 part-time jobs, and do you know what, it was brilliant because I met different people and it made me appreciate money at a really young age. And I just think that's a really mean choice to take away from a child, who just wants to work. If they want to leave school and they just want to work, just let them. Like, it should be a choice. And it really angers me that that's not a choice, because I mean, we don't need to brag, but you think of some of the great people, just Winston Churchill, just off the top of my head. When did he leave school? 14, I think, with no qualifications whatsoever. I'm not saying he was the best human being in the world, not by any means, because what he did with the suffragettes, not too happy about. Anyway, it's another conversation.
Yeah.
Good old suffragettes. Anyway, so my point is people can leave school. I'm not saying we should leave at 14, but there needs to be a bit of allowance for certain people. I remember somebody I went to school with, I won't, mention his name, and he clearly was a doer. He just wanted to get out in the world. He was 15. He was ready to work. He wanted to work with his dad. He was ready to get his hands dirty and build things. And I remember thinking, God, if only you could, because you're thriving with that right now. Sitting here with maths, we're getting on like house on fire, but you're hating this system completely. And if he'd and he was going through, so then he appeared as a naughty child. He appeared as a rebellious child. No, they're just labels where his energy is being misplaced because society is telling him to be a version of himself that he clearly doesn't want to be, and he could have thrived from the age of 14, 15.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot with the kids who are labelled as naughty, rebellious, and all that. I totally agree with you. But you talked there about energy, and I'd love us to move on to. I love everything you're talking about education. I really do. But I would like to, if that's okay, move on to talk a little bit more about another favorite subject of yours. Look at the look on your face there. And for those of you who are listening and not watching, Alicia's face is now lit up completely with the mention of the word energy. But you've mentioned the word energy a few times now, and I think certainly the circles I move in, like you, we talk about energy a lot. But I think there perhaps will be people listening to this sort of who might think, what are they talking about? And I wondered if you have a explanation of what you mean by energy that might help some people who are not quite sure what we're talking about, and might help them understand a bit more.
Yeah, I can give it a shot. So for me, certain people can sense and feel energy moving. Particularly empaths, like that does seem to be sort of a bit of a superpower of ours. However, people that aren't quite aware, it's worth sort of googling words like energy, because you think of atoms and things, and there's science now that's saying that everything is actually moving at a really, really fast pace, and you've got mass energy, which is creating the physical sort of 3D objects in the world. So actually this whole planet is just made up of energy. It's just displayed in different ways. So people will associate energy with, say, the moon and the sea. That's energy. That's energy doing its thing. The relationship between the moon and the sea. Wind, that's energy. Yes, it literally creates electric energy, but wind itself is energy moving. And then there's healers. So I'd be labeled a healer, where we can heal people through energetic movement of energy. I'm aware of, sort of this notion of being an energetic being, which can feel just the changes in energy, and that could be somebody's mood, because we've all got our own types of energy. We've all got individual energy, whether that's your mood, whether that's your energy literally where you feel like you can do a lot of things, or you're feeling tired. There's that type of energy. So energy is a real sort of it's everything, really.
Thank you for thank you for that explanation, because I kind of threw that on you a little bit, but so thank you for that. Because I think a lot of us will understand the talking about energy from oh, I'm feeling tired, or I'm feeling energized, or, you know, if we drink this energy drink, we will have more energy. But the energy that you're talking about, that we're talking about now, is actually
Joy.
it is kind of that, but it's sort of bigger than that in a way. And I think, you know, like you said, that, you know, we are part of one big, you know, planet, really, which is all vibrating at a, because as you said, those particles are moving. And I yeah, here's me now treading into territory that I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I'm gonna, you know, but we can as human beings, as energetic beings, you know, we can all vibrate at different levels, at different frequencies. And when we talk about energy healers, like you said, you know, I think you can help people who are vibrating at maybe a lower frequency, sort of increase that frequency. And it's, you know, and even just talking about that, I'm sort of like scrunching down a little bit at a lower level, and I'm talking, and I'm then rising up when I'm talking about a higher level. And it's about that feeling that we can have of, like, you know, if we're vibrating at a lower level, we're perhaps not feeling, you know, our best and being the most truest version of who we are. And perhaps, you know, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, we're feeling sort of in a box, and in a box we don't particularly want to be in, because there might be a box somewhere that we do want to be in, but you know, society tends to want to squash us into a certain box that society itself can understand and can squash us into, so that we're all following the same path. But actually that's not good for us as energetic beings who you know, I'm even doing it, you know, who want to get out of that box.
We need to be in movement. That's the whole point, is energy doesn't stand still.
Yeah.
It doesn't understand stagnant. And, you know, this is the thing, society does sort of try and fit us into that box, which is actually very stagnant. It's very slow, it's very heavy. And for somebody like me, when I'm not living in my truth, and I'm not in just ownership of who I am, you know, that's when I become very slow, stagnant, and heavy. And when I'm doing things that bring me joy, no matter what they are, no matter how small they might appear, they make me feel lighter. They make me feel more energized. You know, and this is the crazy thing about society, is we're taught to do things that actually makes us miserable. There isn't this society message of actually doing things to make you happy. It's individuals like you and me, and you know, there's a lot of us, and there's famous people that it's like, do things that make you happy. And it's amazing how, you know, we're all talking about it amongst ourselves, yet the people in sort of the power, you know, they're with, you know, they're still singing their tune, but we're all humming this, you know, the same tune our end.
And that's very interesting, because what are the people in power getting from us by keeping us, or by trying to keep us where they want us? And that's a whole other, but you know,
conversation.
Those people in power want us in a certain place, and in a place that suits them, being productive, making money,
for them.
Yeah, and yeah, all of that. Whereas actually this idea of, you know, being ourselves and vibrating at our own highest level and having joy, and you know, I don't know, I mean, that has been life-changing for me. And when you talk about actually energy being stagnant and slow when we are squashed in this box, that really resonates with me. It really does. And getting out of that box and learning those different things has been life-changing. And you know, you also touch there on actually energy and joy, and joy is really what I, you know, like to end you know, most of my current episodes with, actually talking about joy, because the two, you know, the two go together. Being in your highest vibration energy wise is a joyful place to be. Experiencing joy raises your energy. So the two are very, like lots of things, they're all connected. You really love to talk about energy. I love talking about energy as well. Joy is kind of my go-to, but they're all linked, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
So what, I also think we have to allow ourselves to have joy in a way, because we're not brought up with this idea that being joyful, experiencing joy in our life should be a priority. It's okay to have that as a priority, and we're just not brought up like that, or I certainly wasn't, and I know I'm not the only one. And I was on a podcast as a guest the other week, and this lady said to me, do I know when the moment that I understood how important joy was? Do I know when that moment was? And I remember reading The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer,
Yes.
and he says in there that really we are just here to experience joy. And it's like fireworks went off inside. I'm like, yes, which really answered the question for me. There must be more to life than what I was experiencing at the time. And it was, for me, joy was that missing bit. So allowing myself to experience joy has been a massive step. Did you find you needed that, or was that not really where, was that not really a thing for you?
Well, I remember sort of going back years, where people, particularly people older than me, would sort of, I was getting this theme of life's hard, just like get over it. Like life is hard, And I remember just thinking, really? Like, surely that's not why we're here. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I just remember having this inner knowing and these amazing conversations that I'd had with my late brother and with my parents. It's just like, no, we're here to be happy. We're actually here to find joy. Oh, hang on a minute. I am joy. Oh, yeah. I can find joy in every moment, whether it's like this morning, I'm having my cup of tea in bed, my door's open, and this little wren just hops onto the fuchsia bush outside my door. Just a bolt of joy just entered my body. And I was like, oh, this is why I'm alive, to have these moments, to enjoy these moments, and to have more of them. Because, yeah, don't get me wrong, life is hard at times. Like, we've had traumas, we've had losses, some of the experiences I've had. It is very hard. However, those are experiences. Those are things that come and go. However, we need to spend the rest of the time finding moments of joy, because that's what helps us get through those hard moments. Life isn't hard 365, 24/7 till the day you die. No, there's moments of hard. And the rest of the time, let's try and find as much joy in everyday moments, whether it's walking down the street, smiling at someone and they're smiling back. And it's like, oh, that's brought me joy. Whether it's me doing one of my paintings, whether it's, talking to somebody, giving them a coaching session, or hanging out with friends, where, for me, I particularly specialize in mature ladies, where they've got that high vibration frequency, but they've become depleted from doing the conventional life. And I can sort of come along, because I do seem to be very well connected to my energetic essence of joy, and I can just ignite that energy in them. And people have said they felt my energy around them for hours afterwards. So it's just magical.
I think you might be quoting me there.
I think I might be. I didn't know if you'd want to admit that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so, and it's just wondrous to just bring joy to other people's lives. I mean, it's just talk about satisfaction and fulfillment and purpose. When people have said just wonderful things about me, whether I've said one thing or we've had a conversation, or they've been in my presence, whatever it is, and they're just like, oh wow, I feel so much better, like, oh thank you, made me feel amazing. I'm just like, great, my job here is done. That's what I'm here to do, because that's what we're all here to do, is be our best selves, to be our happy selves, to counter the hardships that we all go through.
Yeah. because what we're not saying is that life is always going to be full of joy. What we're saying is that those moments of joy help us through, and knowing that we have that joy and being full of that joy when we can be, helps us through the moments that are not quite so joyful, because we will have those. It's inevitable. We're not saying, oh, isn't everything, we're not being all super Pollyanna about it, that life is all wonderful and we don't see the hardships. It's not about that at all. It's about how to bring more joy into everyday life, so that the moments that we have to endure to varying degrees are we're in a better place. We're in a better place to do that. And creativity is a great place to explore what brings us joy and increases our energy vibration. Creativity is where a lot of it stems from, I think. If you can think of creativity in the wider scope, it's not you've talked about painting, which I think is where a lot of people go to. I would have said years ago, I'm not very creative, I can't paint and I can't draw, but equally I've rediscovered my love of writing, and I like my home to look a certain way and inject color into it. There's creativity there. There's creativity in choosing these pink glasses that I've just chosen. There's creativity in the way that I work with clients, because I don't work in a classic, let's do the grow model or let's do this. I work much more creatively depending on who I'm working with. So there is creativity everywhere, actually.
And in every moment. And this is the thing, it's such an old-fashioned creativity must mean art, music, writing, like that's it. No, creativity is a way of being. For me, it's self-expression. You could be somebody in a board meeting giving the most profound performance of a PowerPoint because you're talking about a subject, whatever it is, and you're really passionate about it. That's still creativity to me. They might not be able to paint, but that's still creativity. It's freedom of self, freedom of self-expression. To me, creativity is just really you being you. And like you say, whether it's making your lounge look really nice, whether it's cooking, it comes in every form. Creativity for me is also nature. Like that is just creative expression.
That's the ultimate. Nature's like the ultimate act of creation, really, isn't it? And by being in nature, we're submerging ourselves in that creation. So I think that's why so many of us feel so much better for being in nature, because we can connect with that whole being part of that vibration that we were talking about, part of creation, all of that. There is just something magical that happens if you can be out in nature and sort of feel it. If you're going on a walk and you're stomping along with your head full of, I don't know, whatever's going on and what's going wrong and complaints and everything else, then you're perhaps not going to get much out of it. But if you can be in nature and actually experience what you're part of, it's I don't know, it's incredible.
That's it. And nature is free. We do need to honor and respect her way more than we do, but that climate change is a whole other topic. But yeah, I mean, the experience I have in nature is profound. Like, don't get me started on what wild swimming does to me energetically. I mean,
I have experienced that firsthand. So we had an amazing time a few weeks ago, didn't we, in the sea? That was just
it was amazing. And I've done rivers this year. I love wild camping. In my Defender, that's something I love to do. So I like to be completely alone in camping, in the wild, and I absolutely love it. And it's free. It's on our doorstep. Again, convention. It's teaching us to buy this, to own this, to be indoors, to watch this. Hang on a minute, that costs money. And it doesn't actually bring you any fulfillment and any joy. It doesn't actually really have much of a metaphysical healing effect as nature does. I mean, don't get me wrong, watching a certain movie, will bring you joy to a point. But like for me personally, being a HSP, I cannot watch adverts. I just have to turn the screen, switch it off. I just can't cope with adverts. It's just too much. Not just from a sensory overload, it's the fact that I'm being bombarded with stories that apparently I need these things in my life. No, I just need nature, thanks. Like that's all I need. In the summer months, I just light up. I just become a fairy nature. I'm just obsessed with being outdoors as much as possible. And there are studies coming out, the biological effects of being in nature is profound. If students or office workers were to look out a window for just 20 minutes while they're working, or just static and just looking out a window that had a nice bit of greenery, the level of their sort of happy hormones, let's just call them, keep it simple, had risen, and they just felt calmer, they felt happier, and then they could go back to their work or back into their classroom, whatever it was, just a very different person. So it's crazy that it's free and it's medicine. It really is medicine.
It is. I think we're coming to an end now, but this conversation has been amazing. I knew it would be. Thank you. Is there anything that I haven't asked you, or that you're desperate to share that we haven't got to?
No, I think I'm good, because I know what we're like when we talk. We can talk for hours.
We can.
So I think for today, I'm at the moment quite happy.
Okay, good. And if anybody, has listened to this or watched this and wants to find out more about you, is there anywhere they can go to find out more about you?
Yeah, I've got a Facebook page. I'm on LinkedIn as Elisha May, and I've also got a website which is elisha-may.com. And yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to me, please do.
Cool. Thank you. I'll put all those links in the show notes as well. But thank you for being here. Thank you for your time, and thank you for our wonderful conversation.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you to anyone that's been listening.
Cool. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeting of Minds podcast. You can find this podcast in all the usual places. Please tell your friends. Please subscribe. And if you have a moment, I'd be really grateful if you could rate and review, as it helps other people find us and helps me spread the messages of empowerment and positivity that I'm really passionate about. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit my website, www.safeandsupported.co.uk. Until next time, bye.